You're watching The Ready Writer, a show where I get to speak to writers of all different genres, mediums, and experiences. The Ready Writer. Are you ready? Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Ready Writer. I'm your host, Casey Bell, and today's guest is Margaret O'Connor, the author of Scandal in the Shadows, The Original Priest, Mother Mary, where she reveals some mistruths of the Catholic Church. Please join me as I talk to author Margaret O'Connor. What is your earliest memory of you writing or obtaining the light for writing?
Believe it or not, I really didn't start writing until later in life. Basically, about 5 years ago was the first time that I actually put pen to paper. So I am I guess I would call myself an unconventional writer, but I find it fascinating, especially if you get into a subject matter which really you have a certain passion for. It really gets exciting.
So, follow-up question, what caused you to write? What was the first unction in your mind to say I should start writing?
In both cases, I started on a book which I stopped, and then I'm on to my current book. And in particular with this book, it basically, I found out that my own Catholic Church had basically been lying not only to me, but to any other Catholic woman regarding the existence of a woman priest within our church. And like I grew up back in the 1950s, and you were explicitly told that there never were women priests, within the history of our church. Well, to actually find out that factual information and to see that, it personally hit me really hard. I mean, how do you begin to digest, let alone swallow such information? And I thought, well, I'm only one Catholic, but how many other Catholics, like right here across the U.S., and then, of course, you think about worldwide, they as well are not aware of this information. And I mean, information is vital, actually, if you ever want to turn around the issue of having woman priests back again in our Catholic Church. So, I mean, I really found it dynamite, but at the time, very disturbing.
So what is the latest book you're featuring in? I believe you talked on it. What is it about?
This is Scandal in the Shadows, The Original Priest, Mother Mary. And it really tells an unbelievably incredible story revolving around a centuries-old scandal by the Catholic Church in lying to the Catholic Church laity. There's scandal, there's deceit, there's cover-up. And I want my book really, it's meant to be a hands-on book. And it's not only for Catholics, it's as well for any Christians. I want them to see the Catholic Church like they've never seen it before. And what I'm talking about is Mary, Mother of God, was actually a woman priest, and her name was Mary Priest. Her title was the model for all priesthood. Priests would actually pray to her. This is the kind of information that any everyday Catholic you just don't hear of. And when you have information like this, then you can start to answer so many unanswered questions of what the hierarchy is doing. Why aren't they acknowledging their early church history? Well, I mean, this would be not only an embarrassment, but they would basically have to admit that they've been lying, to the Catholic Church laity. But when you get into these truths, this factual evidence, there are kernels of things that happened in our past church history which today could be used to turn things around. I mean, if you think of women priests, this is not something new. There were women priests, aside from Mary, they were just regular women priests. There were women bishops, women deacons within our church. And today, with the awful priest shortage in our church, having women again as priests would be a definite beginning to try to shore up that shortage. And then the whole issue of ordination. If you go back, travel back into the 5th century of our church, there was a council of Chalcedon, and there it was unique. It would be like your own parish, your own community would pick a candidate. Any church official, like a bishop, if they got involved in that process, then that ordination of that candidate was illegal. But I mean, you think today with this awful priest shortage, and I know, it couldn't happen immediately because of the entangling inertia of our hierarchy. But if you could go from parish to parish, within different communities, not only here in the U.S., but all across the world that are Catholic, and how much more personable would it be if, each parish, they could ordain a candidate. Because when you look at the priest situation today, so many priests are in their 70s, in their 80s. And then with the Catholic Church, unfortunately, they knew back in the 70s, they could see the number of priests was going down, and they did nothing. And by their actually doing nothing, that meant that we have now something new. We have a communion service due to the shortage of priests where they have consecrated hosts there and someone else will say prayers. But not only is that affected, as well, there were so many churches that were closed, neighborhood churches, because of this issue of the church not doing anything. And here again, there's a canon law, that's a man-made law, that says the bishop can actually choose either a deacon or a member of a laity to run a parish if there is a definite priest shortage. So it's really sad in a way that we have this history there that could really help, alleviate the current situation today.
Okay, so now off the subject of your book, there really, other than research, there is no way to know how to publish a book because they don't really teach it. So during your process, what was the process like for you? What did you find out that you thought was surprising and shocking during your publishing process? Can you just take us a little bit of how you came to the knowledge of how to publish a book and the things you did?
Yes, and that basically came out of that first book that I had stopped writing because I had received I had sent out a gazillion query letters and then as well received back a gazillion, no, we're not interested in your work. And let's face it, after a while, that's not the most psychologically, it takes a toll in a certain sense. But, and I was thinking then, well, what am I going to do? Well, obviously, the only other avenue would be to self-publishing, which I really think is pretty neat because it's really leveled the field where any of us that, are just beginning authors, we have a real true shot to get our book published. But I can offer, as being a new author, I think maybe if you start out on a subject matter that perhaps you are involved in personally, because you know more about it, you have that unique passion for it. And that's basically what I used. I used my passion, in this case with the woman priest issue, I was involved in it. It's something that just is completely wrong in the way that it was done, the cover up, the lies, the deceit. But anyway, if you have that personal passion, then you can really craft something special. I mean, hopefully in your writing that's going to come out uniquely different from other books that have been written on this same subject matter. And in my case, I basically, again, I'm working with the biblical truth, but I wanted to be sure to present it in a way that it's not going to be dry or boring, and that the average Catholic can see a whole history. I went basically a whole lifetime, and you figure, well, gee, I know pretty much about my church. Well, I mean, when you find all these literal skeletons, it's very eye-opening, and you realize, no, you don't. And beyond what I just, mentioned about the early history of women priests, there's also a cover-up by the Catholic Church in not disclosing their own commission's findings. Just back in 1976, which, I mean, isn't very long considering 2,000 years of Catholic Church history, their commission found that there is absolutely no reason why a woman can't become a woman priest. Okay, that was 1976. So why now in 2020 has nothing changed? I want Catholics to realize that you have to become involved in saying, like, you are the church, which we are the church. These were words from the people of God. These were words from Vatican II. They might seem like pie in the sky words, but why don't you get involved? And yes, there is law saying that as a member of the laity, you can speak out on matters of importance. So, you know what I mean? You're not doing anything wrong. But our church hierarchy really has to be held accountable for what they haven't done. They're not following even their own church mandates. And particularly here with women priests, some people might argue, well, when Jesus said, if you quote Galatians 3:28, that there is no man or woman, all are one in Christ Jesus, or going back to Genesis, that God created them, God made them, that sometimes they say, well, no, that really wasn't meant when God said that, he didn't mean that. Well, then put that aside and look at the most current findings, that there is no reason why women can't be priests. And this is something that your everyday Catholic, I'm sure, has never heard of. And that in itself it's wrong, it's sad. But to all the Catholics out there, you need to speak up, because nothing will ever change until you speak up. And having women priests, yes, it would seem different, because obviously as a girl, we never had like a role model like, the men. There's always been men priests from one generation in a family to another. But it doesn't mean that it's something new. It's within our history. And the fathers will say, oh no, we can't start new church tradition. But they were the ones, those church fathers way back in the early centuries, they're the ones that began this new church law called canon law, which completely ruled women, took women out of their religious positions.
Okay. Are you at the moment working on a new book? Are you working on any new projects or new works?
I will get back to the first book, but right now I'm very putting basically all my activity into getting on podcasts, because like such as yours, this is just a wonderful, obviously opportunity to explain what your book is and what it can, in this sense, to any woman in the Catholic Church, what this could mean to your faith life, your spirituality.
Okay, and your last question, if you had the chance to meet and have a conversation with any author, whether they are dead or alive, who would it be and why?
There's a religious sister, Sister Chris Schenk, a Catholic sister, and she's written a fascinating book, Crispina and Her Sisters, and it's basically on woman authority in the early centuries, and she concentrates the first 4 centuries of Catholic Church history. And it's very detailed, and it's going into like the catacombs, and they take these drawings and then other funerary drawings and inscriptions, and it really, again, it's all about the factual truth. But taking that trip with her, I would like to go to the Vatican Library, and this is just a fascinating library. The size of it is immense. They say the shelving, like the book shelving, goes for 53 miles. So you can imagine, like down in that basement, how many city blocks, that expands out. Obviously, with my book, I'm interested, in the early woman priest. I would love to see that, but more importantly, I'd love to see any material that they have on Mary, Mother of God. Excuse me. That would be fascinating, you know what I mean, to really get the true story. And aside from the early religious, documents they just have so many different unique items. Abraham Lincoln, President Abraham Lincoln, and Jefferson Davis, they said neither of them were Catholic, but during the Civil War, they wrote whoever the present Pope was at that time, and they wanted him basically to get his favor, like the Pope to come out and say, I'm for the Union side, or I'm from the South side. But anyway, they have their individual letters there. So I just figured it would be a very unique place to be.
Thank you for watching another episode of The Ready Writer. We want to thank our guest, Margaret O'Connor, for her time and her journey she shared with us through publishing her book. If you'd like to be a guest on this show, go to the website in the description for more information on how to sign up for the show. Thank you again for watching. Have yourself a great day.